is written in TypeScript.
Yeah, and we don't want more complexity.
Mine is
We
in
want
JavaScript.
simplicity. What?
Mine is in JavaScript.
Okay.
JavaScript.
What?
But it doesn't.
Oh, it does.
I'm trying to get used to TypeScript.
Do the
Yeah,
feeling as
it's
it has to
super
type.
messy.
Yeah, this is also the one that you post.
Yeah.
JavaScript understanding the weird part. This is also really good actually course. It's a really good course.
Yeah.
I think it's like 16 hours.
5
Yes.
hours.
I think 16 hours.
Yeah, 16 hours.
So you can actually have like 1 hour every week or something.
5 hours.
There is more. This is like short.
So you have to pay.
How do you get the other
It's Joe.
13 hours?
You have to pay
Yeah. Where is it?
Ah, come on.
further up.
You don't need them.
There
Or
are
like
the
if you
first
watch it
3.5.
2 times of the speed, it's 8 hours. Think about that.
So let's copy your code.
I did that thing you said, bubbling all states up, lifting states.
Lifting, so,
to,
okay.
app.
Is this yours or this? It's the same. Yeah, if I just open it twice.
Love the styles.
So if you click on it, it will be deleted.
Yep.
It's bad UX.
What?
It's bad UX.
But I think it's set that in the description of the.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so, I'm sorry.
Everything
So it's my bad UX.
over.
It's my bad UX.
I wanted to do a button, like a pop-up button when you hover over it, but just follow the instructions.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just like joking. Well, it's not really. So we'll take index.
Yeah, I'm sure it's other components in the component.
So we have like up. So I should place here. Up. Save. New file. Up.js. Seriously? Seriously? Are you joking? What?
So yeah.
Failed to authenticate.
You probably go fast. Just run the replay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
I'm gonna take the jump.
I will do something. Really fast.
Thank you. Yeah, if you do some candies, you for yourself.
I don't have any repos anymore. I hope so.
Yeah, just with you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, we did it. Exactly.
Get all except.
Yeah, just delete the cache. Delete the cache. Actually, we can.
Maybe you can just ask questions about what part you don't really understand, rather than like do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I really like actually focusing on like going faster,
Yes.
so we can actually talk. Maybe I've never like mentioned the context. But maybe we can actually mention the context here, like or portals or I don't know, like
And not everybody do the same way.
yeah,
It's different. Approach is different.
yeah, exactly. So
You cannot generalize one assignment to make in this kind of.
Yeah.
Game or maybe.
It's not good to see like how other people do it, but sure.
yeah, we can also like actually check the homeworks. But maybe it's a good idea to just check the homeworks like this, without running them.
We can do like one person.
Yeah.
That, or I was also thinking about going through the homework.
Yeah. So let's go through, for example.
But, like maybe outside of class and like, giving some individual feedback.
Okay, let's just take one as an
Yeah.
example, so they can ask.
Yes.
So here you can see we have an up component. No. Root.
Still. Yeah. Yeah, this is perfect.
Not for me. So we have like an app component. We have an app component. We have the state. We have the value. We have the input value. Let's just like open the. So technically, we have like here state for the text for the date. So he has like a value. Yeah, it's like the.
Yeah, it's super cool, man.
Man, I didn't say this in the spec. I didn't say this in this. Maybe I've said delete, but not. Okay, so we have the value. We have the input value. And we have datetime. So what's the purpose of the value?
The value is when you type in the what's it called?
Okay, what about the input value?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was when you. I need to make another one passing to child component.
What do you mean?
Give me a sec.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it is when I was when you like press submit.
Yeah.
You clear it, and then I pass input value.
Yeah. So this is something wrong. The first thing.
Okay.
So in React is trying to solve an interesting problem, which is like the source of truth. Because if you see what make applications difficult is actually multiple sources of truth. So you have like an HTTP call, you have your own local state, you have the route changing, you have the WebSocket maybe. So these are a lot of stuff that actually make your application really difficult to reason about. So when change will happen, it will be super actually difficult to predict. But through React, every change can actually go through the state. So everything will mutate the state. So you will have super predictable way of thinking. So if you have like an HTTP call, it was resolved, you will update the state. When someone click the button, you will update the state. WebSocket, you will update the state. Talking with the microcontroller or something, you will update the state. You know what I mean? So it's really predictable to think about. But in other for example like approaches, for example the jQuery approach, the most famous one, it's just like you will have some event handlers and stuff like that. So when you click on this, you will update that value on the DOM, and maybe there's a data attribute on the DOM. You get it, you set it, and that will make it way much harder to actually develop about. And when we say source of truth, let's get back to the word source of truth. Means like there's a place where it will be the source of the truth. Means that place will be the responsible for actually giving you logic. So when you want to check the price or when you want to check the value, there is a place where you want to check the value. It's not randomly. It's not maybe it's in the DOM, maybe it's in the input. No, there is a place. It's predictable.
Redux is supposed to help with this.
What?
Redux or Redux?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Redux is another way to do this kind of stuff. React already has a state mechanism. So React state and props, and even props it will get from the state. As you've said, you can pass the state as props. So state will be the source of truth. And every time the state change, you will have new render. Okay, so it's really important to have like this knowledge, like this notion of source of truth, because that will make your application either super messy and difficult, or super easy to reason about. It's how actually easy or how structured your source of truth, which usually is the state. Maybe it's a different models, but usually it's the state in case of React.
But the
And
rendering, how it works, if a parent component state is changing, all its child components are re-rendering.
Yeah, by default React will re-render everything.
Everything, perfect.
Everything. From that component and going.
Mhm.
React will re-render everything. There is until what?
I said, but it will compare with the virtual DOM and the real domain. It will
This is really details. I give you this detail just for the interviews and stuff. But you should not think about this. You know what I mean? React will re-render. Because like you will think about it doesn't really help to think in terms of virtual DOM. Because you cannot see something. So why you should think about it? So you should just think about what you can manipulate. And a really enemy of the source of truth pattern is duplication of truth. Duplication of truth is like having two places or having like, so let's say I have to-dos. I have list of to-dos. And I have filter. Okay? So I have list of to-dos and you can filter them. So there's completed to-dos, non-completed to-dos. Okay? Usually if you go really kind of simple, you can actually build the to-do list. And after that, when you click a button, you will filter by complete. You create another array. So you will maintain two arrays, one for completed, one for non-completed. But this is completely wrong because you are splitting, like, you're not splitting logic, but you are having actually a lot of places that you need to check. You want to delete a to-do or something, you need to check here and you need to check here and a lot of places. So good strategy actually is to have one source of truth. And as long as you can derive the result, you derive it. So if you have a to-do list and you say filter, you just go through the to-do list and you say if done is false, create a new array. So every time you switch in between, you actually generate new array. So you never actually duplicate the state. You have just one state. In your case, you have one input value. So you needed to actually create a new value just because.
It's a typo. Val is not actually used anywhere. It can just be deleted.
Okay, but it's a common actually way of thinking that people will actually introduce more states or more values just because that will make the make something easy. How you want to pass it, but you should not think this way. You should think actually how you can actually achieve your goal while using your current state. You should not add more state as long as it's related to the old state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is really important actually to actually think in terms of you should not duplicate state. Yeah. Just
I think I forgot that I made an input state and just made an input another one and never used one of them.
Either of them?
What? No, just I forgot that I made one and just made another one
Yeah.
and forgot about the first one and never used it anywhere.
It didn't
Just a
advise
typo.
you, like, you know, sometimes it tells you, like,
Apparently
this
not.
thing is declared. Well, yeah, it's a state. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Just deleted it and everything works as it should.
I can show something really. I don't think it's here. No.
You show me the India.
No, it's not here. But yeah, so I've actually like I had like in a job interview. So we were discussing. So this is a really famous pattern, and I really like these companies that use this approach. So they will give you a repo with like good React code, good enough. It's not the best, and they will actually give you some time to make it better. So you will actually do a pull request about changes, and I think this better. If there's like duplicate state, you remove it. I really like this.
Low battery.
Yeah, I will. So one thing actually we discussed. So there was a problem. So there was pagination. So every time you actually go through the, you can. So there is a list of users, and you can paginate like through the list. Is it? Yeah, thank you. You can paginate through the list, and you can also search. Okay. No, sorry. So whenever you are searching, you are actually filtering the array just to include, like for example, if you type Y, you will just like pick the users with that start with Y. Okay, and you have also pagination. So whenever you paginate, you go actually to another list.
What is an paginate?
Yeah, pagination like
Page.
page, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whenever you are searching, you are actually editing the list. You know what I mean? So every time you search, it will be a new list. But whenever you are paginate, are you actually really editing the list? It's just the same list. You can just actually go. So give me the first 5. Give me from 0 to 5, from 5 to 10, from 10 to 15. So this is pagination. So you are operating on the same array. But some people, when they implement pagination, they actually split the array. They don't use cursor or indexes. You know what I mean? So they will create multiple sources of truth. So if you will change the pagination, let's say you have a feature, so the stakeholder, they will say, we are paginated by 5, we want to paginate by 10. So it will be difficult actually to do that because your array is already split. So just remember to merge and like normalize all your state or arrays and something, and after that operate on it as needed. If you want.
Aren't they actually paginating on their backend for it?
Depends. This is also another thing. Even if you paginate on the backend, whenever you load like more users, you can actually add it to the old list.
And then
Append them to the old list. And whenever you go back or you go up front, as long as the cursor that you are asking for is already in the memory, you don't need to fetch. You know what I mean? But you don't create a new structure every time you go to another page because that would be super difficult to maintain. And whenever they will say, we will change the order, we'll make it 10 instead of 5, you need to change your whole arrays to do that. So don't say because I need, in the UI, I need pagination and they are different arrays, so I need to implement different arrays in my state. No. Think wisely about different approaches and like compare them. This is really important, like concept that I've learned in the past like years about React. But he said that it's a typo.
Yeah.
But that's good that we remember this kind of stuff. Another thing, we can see an array here. I really advise like against using arrays.
Oh.
It's not cool to use arrays. Well, for us it's really simple, and we will be using arrays. But in the professional world, don't use arrays, because most of the time you want to operate. For example, if you have a list of comments or list of ports or list of users, you want to get the first user. You will not get the first user, the second user. You will get the user with this ID, the user with this ID, the user with this ID. So just use an object and in like
Keys and such.
keys as like. So instead of doing this, ins- instead of doing this, so you have object
That's your city.
and you say name
Yeah. This is a mistake.
Yunus. This is really famous patterns. You can use this in Angular, in React, in anything. But because React really enforced JavaScript, so we need to use this stuff. But in Angular and stuff, they already give you a lot of collection and arrays and stuff. So you say ID for
So I could.
just a second.
Oh, sorry.
Is it? So 12. So imagine there is a lot of these. Okay? A lot of users. If I will tell you like the user ID 5 disconnected, what are you gonna do? You need to say v.filter ID. You say user and you say user.id equal. You know what I mean? It will be super difficult to operate on the array, and it's not cool at all. Especially when you have nested collections. There's comment, and comment is referencing user, user referencing comment. So a better option is actually, and even if you delete, it's difficult. It's even more. So let's say we want to delete this one. So you need to delete this one, generate a new array, and like make them like this using splice or slice. Up to you if you use immutability. But if you have like if you convert it to an object and just use the just use 4 12 no so I'll just 5 and 12. I want to delete the user ID 4. Delete v dot 4. And I have two users. It's so much easier to operate on objects than arrays. Arrays are cool, but when the object doesn't have like kind of identity, when you don't have an identity over the object. So when you have like a list of maybe I don't know, like it's really difficult to come up with this example. But if the stuff that you are storing inside the array, they don't need to be manipulated like separately. They are just a collection, like collection of numbers. It doesn't matter which number. A number doesn't have an ID. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3, 5, 6. So you don't say, oh, let's store them in object and stuff. It's just a numbers. But whenever you have a collection, and this collection is actually, so you have users, you have comments, and comments they are actually treated alone, so you can delete them. So another thing, let's say the to-do list. So let's say this kind of thing, and you want to say deleted. It's like a task, and you say deleted true. Okay. You want to change to deleted false, maybe. You want to make it false. In the array, you need to filter or you need to find the ID and stuff. Here you can just say, for example, ID, let's say ID equal 4. We want to make it false. So I will say v of ID dot deleted.
Why square brackets if it's an object?
Because this is a variable.
Yes.
This is variable. It's like this. Or 4. You know what I mean?
No.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So I'm not saying, I don't mean this.
Okay, that's.
I mean this, like, I mean v dot 4.
Yeah, that's.
So because ID is equal 4, so I want to access 4. I want to delete something programmatically. So instead I use this. And ID, it will be turned to be 4. Because the value of ID is 4. You know what I mean? So if you want to access an object using a variable or something, use the square brackets.
Ah, okay.
You know?
You can dot, but there is a normal, so you can use dot.
Oh, okay, right. Dot notation.
Yeah, just a number.
Because it will be ID.
Oh, that's
I don't
good.
want ID.
Yeah, now
I
I
want-
remember.
Cool. So I can just say id dot deleted equal true or false. Sorry. And I will have v, the first object, and it's deleted false. So much easier. So whenever you have like these kind of collections of stuff that they exist standalone, a user it's already something that exists, just convert it to an object.
Anyways, the array was what it was given to us in
What?
the assignment. They gave us an array. What
Yeah, but that was
what
the-
are they going to do?
Yeah, but if you don't know why something is wrong, you can never actually do stuff. So you need to understand the hard way by doing mistakes. You need to say why actually I move. If, for example, we teach me just use objects, but why you should use objects? You will hit an interview, you will hit a problem, and you will be just using objects forever. And array are so much powerful. If you want to operate tree, like sort stuff, array is really like interesting than objects. Indexing, like looping, mapping, reducing, it's so cool. But it's just like you need to know where to use this stuff. Yeah, sure, go on.
I'm a little bit confused, not confused about like what you said.
If you are confused, it's fine. This is the trick. You need to be confused so you can learn.
It's,
Don't be.
because in object the things are not ordered. No? Like
Yeah.
So like.
I don't think the order really matters because, well, at least for example, in my application, I think Anas maybe share the same thing. Maybe you want to order users or recipes alphabetically, so the array doesn't make any sense. The array preserves order, but it doesn't really make any kind of. This is what I've said. For example, if you are sorting stuff in your applications, you should not actually. So let's say you are sorting from A to like A, B, C, and from like the other side, Z, like Y. So you will actually have the reverse order. So you should not actually. You don't need to actually store sorted array 1, sorted array 2, and the original array. No, every time you sort, just generate a new array. And if you have problem with performance, Google it. How to cache result over, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's like stuff called memoization and things that you can actually speed up the thing. I don't know if you have.
Maybe don't try to force everything into objects.
Yeah,
now,
this is-
but,
yeah.
But if you're using an array and you find it tricky to do something with it, then just consider: is it easier if it's an object?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's because I faced the same problem. I used the array, and I had to every time like find index, filter, and
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There is actually, you can actually convert arrays to object or object to arrays, or use even Lodash or something to do that. But what he's saying, and I've said that, it's not like a silver bullet. You need to use objects, like every time. Arrays are so much powerful, and even powerful than objects. But objects they make some stuff easier to do, like deleting.
Yeah, but yeah, what
Moving.
about the mapping, for instance? We had to map to all this. I mean,
How do you iterate over an object? What is the preferred
Yeah.
way to
So for example, like me, like let's take this one. Let's take this one. Let's take the v. Okay. So a really stupid thing you can do this. Object.keys v.map. So let's say we will return that. We will return. There's so much tricks, but you don't need to force yourself into this kind of stuff. Like we give you to use an array, and you should use an array. Like progress, why like you should not progress with some rush. You just like take it easy. I'm telling you this because you are already done with the homework. You know what I mean? So I can just say user dot name.
No name.
yeah.
No, oh yeah, I'm sorry. So because I have the key now, so this is the key. I'm mapping over the keys because I said key. So I will say v of key of name.
What?
Uranus, Anas. So again, it's not serverable. It's not something you need to use always. Arrays are much powerful than objects. But if you, as Anna said, if you think that it's going really crazy with arrays and you need to delete a lot of stuff from inside and stuff, consider using objects. Okay? But don't say I will use objects straight away. Because like they didn't create arrays they didn't create arrays just for fun. So yeah, so we have tasks here, a list of tasks. So we have date.now, and we have deadline, and we have key. Key is date.now. It's kind of a bad idea, but it's fine. What?
that's over there.
I know I've read as well that it wasn't a good idea to use data now, but I thought for this application you won't
It's fine.
do more than one
It's
task per
fine.
millisecond.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, and we have the binders here. We are binding, so we actually don't lose the this. We have handle input. Let's check the renderer. Usually I check the renderer first, and we have an input. We are passing the handle input change, and we are binding it here, even that we already bound it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
That's kind of repetition. Yeah, like bind square.
What's that?
Yeah, so it's not necessary to bind it here because it's already bound at the top. Okay, so you need to choose one. Either you bind it at the top or you bind it in the render. You don't bind it twice. And we are passing the input file.
Yeah.
And what does this actually? So you can see this. It just like set the new value. Whenever you type, there's the on change. Callback.
The on-change is in the, I think, in the input.
You just made a
Are you
bad
using it
name.
also?
That's all.
Yeah.
Bad naming.
Yeah, bad naming.
Okay, bad naming.
That's a prop.
But
Yeah, I use it as a prop.
Props.
oh, so it's a custom input component.
Yeah.
It's a custom. Oh, you confuse me, man. Like I said,
Oh, sorry.
did they add like callback to React? And I'm not aware. Like what? I'm so ashamed.
So you are passing it as a prop.
Yeah, I'm using it as a prop. To input.
Yeah.
That's TSX.
Okay, create 0.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah,
Is what
there we
they
go.
mean.
That's a good name.
It explains everything. It's a callback.
No. Whatever. We have input. So input is just like this is like kind of it's like it's no, it's not dumb. It's good. Maybe you have like custom style for the input or something, but it's not really necessary now because the only you are having one component that is rendering one component. In the future is good, but you should not actually say in the future. In the future it will be complex. Like, you know what I mean? So you need to actually evaluate your thing. Because the only difference between like this and the other thing is just this. On change and the other one is covered.
Yeah.
So it's better to actually just inline it here. Unless you have like a custom complex component. Okay. We have another input for date, and it's the same thing, just using datetime and bind. It's better to bind at the top or bind here. Choose one of them. We have the to-do button. It's a button.
Bad naming again. Yeah.
No, it's not really bad naming. Because I thought that it's HTML. Like,
Oh, okay.
you know what I mean? This is why I complained about the
The
callback.
style.
But it's up to you how you name your props. No one can actually say. I thought that it's an input, and they said callback. It's called on change. So this is why I'm complaining. It's not because of the name. We have the button. To the button. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a div with button, and yeah, it just bind it to the on click. And after that, we have the to-do list. We have the tasks, and we have the handle delete. Okay, handle delete is here. Go to definition. So just like filter the tasks and select the task that their ID is different than the ID that we are looking. So if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you want to delete 3, you say 1 is different than 2. Keep it. 2 is different than 2. No. Remove it. 3 is different than 2. 4 is different than 2. Keep it. Okay? It's kind of simple.
What was the problem with that line in there that you had to disable it?
Oh, it's because I was trying.
Yes, he's complaining, right?
What? Yeah, it's
Like
because
what?
I passed that to what's called to input. Yeah, to-do list. We'll see that in a moment. And because when I clicked it, the div it was in,
Yeah.
it was an unclick in the to-do list. Nothing happened. Then Zoe told me it needs to be in the because it was on a component that again gets rendered
Yeah.
like a grandchild of that one.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see it in a moment.
Okay? Seems clear. Any questions so far about deletion? Like... No questions? Sure?
Yeah.
So we should close the subject of...
Questions.
we should close the subject of this to do and stuff. Okay.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
If you open up to-do list, right? Another file. Just because I still don't quite understand why it doesn't work. Okay, see the on-click, right?
Yeah.
Before I had it to like fire there. Now I pass it as a prop to what's called to-do item.
Yeah.
Right. When I had it there, as you told me, I shouldn't do like before, right? I shouldn't. Don't need to keep on passing it down.
Yeah.
When I had it there to fire that, nothing happened. Like on.
It should not fire here. Like the way you should do it is like let's take this component.
I mean, now it works when I pass it on again.
You mean it was like this? Was it like this
No,
maybe?
it wasn't like this. It was
No,
a
like-
bound there. And
But it should not be bound there because why should
I mean, I tried all
okay?
binding and arrow and all that. Nothing works.
It should not be bound here. You know why?
Be bound in the
It's
parent.
Because-
bound in the parent. I know.
It's bound in the parent, so you don't need to bind or do anything.
Yeah.
Can you go back?
Just a second, delete handle. Handle delete.
It's just
Yeah.
putting in the.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah. Now it works because I pass it on again to do item another component.
yeah, because like you are not calling it here. You are calling it inside the to-do item. So you cannot call it here.
Okay. Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
I-
yeah, you cannot call it here because you want to call it when the click happens.
Oh, got it.
You don't want to call it now. You don't want to call it while you are rendering.
Yeah.
You want to put it here. When
No,
you
I
click,
understand.
it will. It's like an odd event listener. You don't fire the function.
Okay, but that was very
Because what-
tricky. Like, in order to pass some arguments to that function, you actually need to encapsulate it in an arrow function.
Yeah.
I was struggling a lot with that. I was just like, I want to put the thing, but if I put the arguments, it's gonna fire the function, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I have
exactly. That's exactly the problem I had.
That was a
Either it
big
didn't
issue.
fire at all, or everything fired.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Yeah, it can be a bit tricky to.
using,
Yeah, reason about this kind. Yeah,
he's
believe me, it's difficult even for me sometimes.
If he writes without this dot props, it will still work, I think, inside because he's using the props in the map.
What?
If he in the task, yeah, this dot, yeah, down. If you remove this prop, it will still work. I think.
No.
It will not work.
Because this handle delete is not here. It's coming from the
But
parent.
in above task and date.
Where?
In,
Give me the line number.
in 11.
11. This dot props the data itas.
Oh no, data is just the what's called. It's
I
just
couldn't
the.
change it.
If you don't write props, it will still work. I think.
It's a map.
Because it's mapping.
Yeah, because you can actually instead of saying this dot props the data, you can just change it with
It's
item.
not like
You can put item dot task, item dot deadline,
Yeah, exactly.
item. He's using here item dot key. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It's a,
It's like you are doing double work.
minor.
You are doing double work. You are mapping, and after that you are. It's like you are using for loop.
yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, basically.
It's like you are using for loops. You know what I mean? Like with for loop is a data
Okay,
of
I
I.
just proved that you didn't copy my code.
I didn't, the only thing I changed was I passed it on another time. From what you
Okay.
said.
Yeah,
And
Move on.
is there a need to write item dot key? He can only write key is equal to key.
What do you mean?
It's because I need in the props of the what's called of the app I have an what's called an item in the object named key, so I'm accessing.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like key. You can see here key.
Bad naming again.
Key. It's not bad naming.
Ah.
It's not bad naming. It's a good name. It's key.
Oh no, I mean the next one in the yeah there.
okay, let's move on, man. Like 1 hour.
Yeah, but is it clear?
Yeah.
It's really actually good to review because you'll be doing this in your day-to-day life. So what we should focus more now? Forms maybe, or
Passing functions.
maybe passing functions. Yeah.
No, maybe not.
I've never passed that way. It's calling
Router. Router.
No, the router is the last one. I was thinking about
Pass
moving it
reference
now here,
rather than pass
but
the,
it's not a cool idea.
arrow function. Otherwise
What do you
it's
think? Like
always-
routing before data
always
fetching or
every
data
time
fetching
you
before
do
routing?
this,
Okay.
That can like
How would I go about
potentially,
this that?
you just pass the reference.
So just
reference, this
I
dot
think
dot
that's
dot
me
dot
all right.
dot.
No, you cannot do that.
Yeah, because it's like two separate.
When we were seeing the
Curriculum?
life cycle,
Yeah.
we didn't really saw when to fetch some data. I think that
That
would be like
this is
super-
class 4 thing.
Class
technically,
four.
next
I
one.
wanted to do that, and
But I'm
that's
not sure
why
if
Last
I-
suggestion.
because I think it's good to move it like now because I think they are quite fast.
Yeah.
So maybe we can use data fetching a little bit.
No.
Do one.
Maybe we can use data fetching.
Yeah.
Like
And maybe that builds good upon
They
the
don't change your
life
code
cycle,
and then
right?
put it
Yeah.
past
So I
it.
think
Okay.
try and give it a go.
Oh,
Yeah,
you made
so-
it to, what's called,
Yeah,
You
and
made
then
another
another function inside of the
You
class.
can even
And that reference with inside,
Oh, exactly.
so you just always pass it.
Exactly.
the next one.
You gotta do that problem.
so, yeah.
That's just passing.
So like it was like I think no need for a break because I think it was cozy. We are just discussing. It was not really heavy. So like I was thinking actually about like going like more toward like props and state today, but I think you got the concept quite well, and I don't need to actually spend more time just passing props again and stuff. And for the functions, you got the idea that each is a value, you can pass it and stuff. Binding, you can just bind it in the parent. So maybe we can actually take something from the next class and talk about it now, because we are kind of quite fast compared to the other classes.
Yay!
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about data fetching.
Oh, yeah, true.
Nice.
Okay.
Tasty.
It's an interesting topic, and you will be facing it a lot, everywhere. So yeah, so let's start with a really simple example. Let's what's an interesting API you are actually. So let's say the Giphy API maybe. Let's say the Giphy API.
JSON placeholder is perfect for this.
Yeah.
What?
JSON placeholder.
This is some placeholder.
No, I like Giphy more.
Or the space.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, it's visual.
Yeah.
They have even a developer like Giphy, like it's super.
Okay, nice. What the hell, dude?
Oh, I like that. Pretty nice.
Giphy. So what we'll try to build is a really simple like we'll just request some data from the Giphy API and it will give us pictures and we will render those pictures. Okay? So but the interesting thing here is not the Giphy data, is about when and how actually fetching data. What's the best practices around data fetching and stuff like that. Okay? And just to be think like there's a lot of new things in React, especially the last conferences, which was just like 10 days ago. It's not about hooks. No, it's not about hooks. I'm talking about data fetching. It's about suspense and cache.
Ah, yes. Memo.
Yeah, but it's mostly about suspense and cache. So they will change the way you do data fetching, and it will be the standard way. So I give it a try, but now we are trying to actually talk about the used stuff, and it's not used. It's something new. Every company is using what we are like the lifecycle, and not really this fancy new. But it's really cool.
Is
Like-
it hard?
I don't think so. It's like they are like removing a lot of code.
It's soft.
So you don't need to do loading and stuff. They will manage loading for you. But yeah, it's fine. So we will have like an app component here. I will just create a new file called let's say Giphy. Okay, .js. Okay, Giphy.js, and we can actually import React from React. And so we can create a class Giphy extends React.component. Okay, we can have the render, and we can just return a dummy maybe p h1 maybe. Hello.
That's why you use snippets.
Clear? Clear? And we can import this here, and we say import. What? yes, we need to export. So we say export. We can just do it inline it here. So we say export default. Okay.
Without default also it will work.
What?
Without, is it important to write default?
Without default, you need to do like this. You need to put it here inside because it will be named export. You know what I mean? This is the difference. The other one will be default. So we can say default Giphy from. So it's relative to our file. So we have Giphy just next to it. So we can just say Giphy. Okay. And we can render Giphy here. So we say Giphy. And we have hello. It's quite small setup. So now we have like the Giphy API, and we need to actually do a request to the Giphy API so we can get pictures. The first thing, usually when there's an API calls on this kind of external stuff that maybe you can use across a lot of components, it's just better to extract it to a separate file. So just like create a separate file called API that is responsible for doing API and promises and stuff. So I will say new file, I will call it api.js, and I will say export default. No, I will just say export function get Giphy. It will not take anything. We will just say return hello. No, for now. Okay, just start simple. Don't start like investing in a function and write it a lot, and after that, when you try to test it, it will not work. And what is the error? So just try to simple hook up everything together, and after that start extending the other parts. But you are every time like aware what's changing, and if there is a bug, you can I've added this. So this is the problem. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to the Giphy. So in this component, when we will show this component needs some data from the Giphy API. So this component actually requires some data, and this data is coming from an external API. So it's not really coming from state or anything. So what's actually the best way to request this kind of things? We already like covered the lifecycle that when the component will show, it will fire component dead mount. So if we will say here component dead mount, sorry. Clear? Is it fine? Okay. So we have just an alert in the component dead mount, and this actually function will fire once our component is done rendering. So it will be on the screen, and this function or this method will fire straight away after that. So I think this is one of the best actually lifecycle and the most used one to actually display fetch data. Because once you know that your component will be shown on the screen, you can request data. There is no need to actually fetch data that you don't need or you are not displaying. A famous thing is like, for example, the Facebook chat. So you are talking with a friend, you are loading the messages with that friend, but you have like hundreds of friends. Are you loading all the data from these friends or all the messages? There is a lot of messages. It will be maybe 10 megabytes or 15, a lot of messages. So when you click on a friend, and there is the chat like pop-up, you can request the messages for that friend. You know what I mean? So when the component will be shown, you can request the data that this component depends on.
Yeah.
Is it a clear concept? That you don't actually fetch everything. You just fetch what you need to show.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yeah.
It's clear? And we do that mainly using the component dead mount. So when the component will be already on the screen, we can just say, get me this data. Okay? Mm-hmm. So here I will just say, I'll just import API. From API. Okay? And I have, how it's called, the get Giphy fix Okay, and here I can say get GIF okay, and I will just stick an alert here. Alert fetching, maybe. So I want the component to be shown. If the component is not there, let's say we will cover routing before, or we had the example of having like a toggle. So you show the counter, you hide it. You remember this example? So whenever the counter is not on the screen, we don't need to fetch the data for this counter. Whenever we show it, we can fetch the data.
Yeah.
Clear?
Why did you use that mode and not will mount?
So the first thing, will mount will be removed.
Yeah.
So this is
So you decided that you need to mount it before.
what?
You're fetching the data after you turn hand on,
Yeah.
but not before.
No.
Why?
What do you mean? Like,
Good
because
question.
before so this is actually solved by suspense. So in React there is two things. There is the constructor, there is the component will mount, and there is the component did mount. There is three places. So component did will mount is almost like a constructor because you construct the component and you are about to show it. You know what I mean? So we can actually fetch the data in the constructor. Why? But that's bad because maybe the component will be removed before actually having a chance to be displayed. This is the first thing. The second thing, it will be removed as we said, and like if you actually use component will mount a lot, you will have a lot of problems in your code because you will request data and maybe a component will be fetching data that it's not needed. So you just like want to make sure that this component is on the
It's actually
screen.
working, yeah.
It's on the screen. I need the data straight away. But component will mount doesn't give you a guarantee, and there's problems with server side rendering and stuff with component will mount.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the thing, like, you can say you can use it, but it will be removed. So it doesn't make any sense actually to use it because it will be removed. Okay? So, clear? So now I'm expecting this to fetch something. So the easy thing is just like to use return fetch. Okay? But fetch needs a URL. So what's the URL for the GIF API? Let's check the documentation. Search. Yeah. Let's say trending, maybe. Yeah, so you can say if we would, I'll just try. I like to try it here. V1 GIFs trending. We get the trending like GIFs, like the famous GIF. Like, okay.
You need your key as well?
Yeah, and you need the API key. So after the URL, you can say like this. Say API key equal my API key.
Yeah.
What is
It's API key, not your API
yeah, I was
key.
like, what?
Yeah.
Maybe this is key.
API, it's like this. Super dummy. I'm trying to not type a lot, just stealing from there.
Ooh.
Boom! A lot. A lot. Okay? So we have this thing. So let's put it here. First thing I would say const URL equal this without the API key. And I will say this. Okay? I will fetch URL, and here I will say like this, and I would say API key. This one, did you notice that I've tried the URL, and after that I'm just sure that it's working. I can put it here. Imagine if I just copy the URL and put it here. I would be like, why it's not working? Is it because of the API key? So test like stuff really separately and make sure that they are working. So you'll not be confused. Is it because of this? Because whenever you have a lot of branching in your mind, maybe it's because of this, maybe it's because you'll be lost. So just test stuff separately. I'm sure that this URL works. It's not because of the URL that it's not working. You know what I mean? Like you should develop this kind of habits, and it will make your life really like easy.
That's the key of programming. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Divide
Like
the
smaller
smaller
chunks. Yeah.
chunks.
Any system, like even Google or something, they have really big systems, but they have teams operating on really small things. They have people like scrapping stuff from websites. They have people just responsible for the index, just when you search, when you type. So like, don't say that big and complex systems are really like difficult. If you have difficult to grasp system, it's your problem as a programmer. People build really small systems, so they can operate on them. People, you call them microservices, a lot of stuff. But for example, Uber, they have billing, they have drivers, they have clients. They don't merge everything in one. They have really small like features, separate features. Okay, so the key is to actually decompose your problems and make them smaller, so we can operate on them without thinking a lot about the. So now I'm thinking about this function, which is a fetch. I don't need to think about the component. This function will return a fetch and display data. You should not copy this function and put it here, and oh, maybe the did mount is not working, maybe the fetch is not working, maybe the URL is not working. It will be like a nightmare to solve this kind. So I say API key. Okay. And let's go one step actually further. So let's kill this return and let's say console.log. If I will open this URL, it works. So now I'm sure that the URL that I split it into variables, it's working. Instead of, oh, I assume that it's working, I go and code more stuff. No, like just like stop, check. Maybe it will be slower, but in the long term you will actually win because you know and you master everything and you will face less bugs.
What's the advantage of splitting into variables? Or is this easier for readability?
It's readability, the first thing. The second thing, maybe this will change. Maybe they will say v2, stuff like that. The API key will expire. Usually, if you have a big system, the API key will not be hard-coded here. It will be from another system. You know what I mean? So, for example, if you have a company or something, or you have Facebook token, if you are actually building something that is communicated with Facebook, Facebook will give you a token, and that token is refreshed every 2 days. So it will come in from variable. So having this notion of just one variable with all the URL and API key, it's just like abstraction. But usually in real life, you will have this kind of stuff that is changing. Okay? So, and of course, readability, it's really important. So we have console log and it's working, the thing. So we can say const, we can just like inline it. Okay. Now we can say .then. We can say console.log response. We'll just like output the response. But we can see here that the
It's not returning. It's not returning.
it's because of the. It's not really because of the return. It's because of the. You can see mixed content. The page at was loaded over HTTPS, but requested an insecure resource. So probably it's because of the.
But you still,
Yeah.
still need to like return this fetch, right?
No, but the problem here is not about the return. We are not doing anything with the return. This error is not because of the component. This error is like unhandled rejection. It's nothing related to a component. You know what I mean?
Is it this fetch has only a response?
So if we will refresh here and we'll say, does HTTPS works? No, they only support H.
No, it's
Looks like it's HTTPS.
JSON placeholder. It doesn't sound that bad now.
No way. No way. I don't wanna trust you.
Yeah, like the secure thing.
You.
Mm,
Yeah.
no, the API is like saying, oh, this is HTTPS and we don't want HTTPS and stuff like that. So. If we will open this in a new tab.
It's getting a call.
Yeah. Access to fetch at from origin has been blocked by course policy. No access control allowed. It's the shitty like course thing. Like I really hate course. I really like. Let's Google it. Giphy course.
Yeah. The token that you're using, where did you get that from?
It's my token.
Created an email,
It's my token
yeah.
here. It's fine. The problem is just the shitty course. I don't want like no.
You're gonna have to give up, man.
No way. What?
The SpaceX API.
What's that?
Just gives all the information from SpaceX.
Oh man, that sounds fun. Come on, you're wearing a NASA t-shirt.
What does it return?
all the information for every launch, for every rocket.
That's cool, man.
Sounds stupid.
Oh my god!
Space is so stupid.
Because gifts, they are, like
Super funny.
man, you're a stumble.
Teaching not necessarily. You need to have a kind of balance. Otherwise, you'll always stuck on the same problem.
I don't think so. No.
No, it generates a random gift for every time it's
Bring the rockets.
Bam, bam, bam. It's working.
No way, man. I hate it.
Wait, what did you check?
Yes, he just took out.
I will not tell you. You were saying switch to placeholder. No one wanted to help. Like it was like switch like. No, I will not show you. No, the only thing is like no. I will let the fetch decide the security. Okay. I'll just let it decide. So if I would say the JSON. It's really fun.
What?
Let's see the text. What the fuck?
Sometimes like they return another promise.
Yeah, like
So like the response to that.
no, the JSON is like returning an error. You can see here it's rejected because it cannot parse. It's returning HTML like somehow. You will see like you will see here like it's returning like preview.
Okay.
It's like it's returning HTML like seriously.
Yeah, you need two then.
What? Yeah, of course, but the problem is rejected. Like, it's not because of the then.
But I shouldn't. I mean, you don't find it. Response.json and then that's
Yeah, yeah, but the problem is like the JSON is we are not. It's not returning JSON. This is the problem.
When you find another promise, right?
Try that then again. And
Well, like I've said like .json, okay, and it should return a promise. The promise is rejected.
yeah.
dot then now instead of the JSON dot then. No, instead of the JSON. Take off the JSON.
Promise.then. It's undefined. You cannot say promise.then. You cannot say response.then. You can say response.json.then.
Yeah. Try the then.
But it's a rejected promise. Like, I don't know if you like it's rejected. If you say then,
Say JSON.
what? Yeah, it's because of the code sandbox. Yeah, it's because of the code sandbox because it's like it's over HTTP or something. So I'll just like try code blitz or stack blitz. Sorry for the weird error. Maybe it works here. Not sure. Let's try it.
SpaceX.
No way.
You're sure it's a lie.
I agree on that. We're talking about the location of rockets, man. I mean,
Oh, is every flight since the
Active, up to date, all info, thrust information, trajectory, speed.
It's so cool, man.
Here, check it out.
I think I will go wait.
That already the placeholder API.
Or just use the placeholder API.
Yeah.
I'm just like afraid of facing another issue with this shit.
you're afraid to kind of give up, man.
No, I don't wanna give up.
You test it super quickly. That code you just paste.
Okay.
Oh, that's a cool outside. Like a mini project with this.
Is this one?
Do you have images and stuff?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like the patches? And
For some reasons, I will give up and I will say the. Well, I'm not sorry.
Historical moment, man. Like
What?
very important moments in our life.
and videos of these.
And finally surrender.
What?
Please.
So cool.
So for some reason, we'll give up the Giphy, which is even a cooler API. But yeah.
So what are we going to do now?
Can you share your repo? Can you share the URL? Can you give me the URL? No, the URL. The URL. No, the URL of the literally the URL. The URL.
Yeah, but it's new.
Can you save it? Just Control F, like Command S or Control S.
So what do you say?
Are those tabs?
For some reason, it works here.
Oh, come on.
Have you ever closed a signal tab?
It's like 300 of
More than last time.
Like how it works when you actually need to find something. Like, oh yeah, I need to like check the tab that it was somewhere in there. Like,
Like, as I say, like,
Okay.
what you just open a new one. Okay, but how do you remember? I mean, you can't even like say no. You can't. You're trying your.
you can even look at the logos. They have this. They have this is not so much this was on stop. No, control travel on board the computer.
Does anyone start to load everything? Yeah, you're easy. We should do our final project.
And you can find the here.
Yeah.
It's working now. It's working now. And with the Giphy API. With the Giphy API. Okay?
What it was?
Man, I literally didn't change anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I know.
Please, alright. Sorry. So let's get back all the stuff that we did.
I don't remember.
We're here. We don't remember. We are here now. We are trying to fetch stuff from the Giphy API. Okay? So we say fetch URL, and this is the URL. And we say then, which is a promise. We use catch if you want to catch the error, but usually we hope optimistically that it will work. So because it's JSON, we need to convert it to JSON. So I will say response. No. Response.json. Okay. This will return like a new promise that is responsible actually for parsing JSON and stuff. And when we say then again,
We were forgetting about putting the ball in there, right?
No, but now it's resolved. The problem because it was not resolved. There was an error. Remember the red screen, the beautiful red screen. But now the promise is resolving successfully. So if we will say body now, so body is an object that has data, meta, and pagination. Okay, we are mostly interested in data. So if you say body.data, it will be an array. Yeah, it's an array.
How did you solve it?
We don't know.
We don't know. Like I just like I think I'm using his I think I'm using his API key. So the only thing that I changed is the API key. Like the problem is the API key. So maybe my API key was really old.
Maybe it expired.
Yeah, from it I've used it like maybe like 4 months ago.
Try using your old API.
Just copy and paste.
Your API key is longer.
Yeah, man. What's up with that?
Looks right. It's working. What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? Programming, like.
No, it's JavaScript.
JavaScript, of course.
No,
That's why
JavaScript is good.
Space.
JavaScript is good. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to reach the earth. I'm trying to reach the earth like you are. You cannot. Course problem. Okay. So now we have the data and we console.log. So instead of console logging the data, we will return it. Make sense? Just like save. And here we will delete this. I don't know why it's not saving. That's fine. So if we'll say here, so one thing I like to do it. So this function is handling everything. Yeah. So if we will console.log There's some interesting like things here. It will return undefined actually, because I'm not returning anything. And if I will return here stuff, it will be a promise. Okay?
We could use async await.
Yeah.
Would be nice.
No.
Are you fine with using async await? All of you? All of you?
No, we're not
Is it
super
fine?
comfortable, but it would be nice to see it.
So let's do export async function, and I will say await fetch URL const response. Okay, and after that I will say const body equal await response .json,
Okay.
and we say return body,
Nice.
maybe not data.
What is async await?
I will discuss that. So this is the old, this is let's say old. Okay? And this is the new one. So what's response?
You have a basic.
Yeah, so you can see that there is two things here. There is async. So I will delete the async from here. The only difference between two functions, there's the async before. Async, it will kind of make a function like a promise. So that function will, so when we call this, when we call when we call this, it will return a function, and that function will return promise technically. Or you cannot return, you can just do this. Okay? But the thing with async functions is like they return a promise by default because their execution will be actually paused and run again. So, for example, here we will say await, fetch. Let's say fetch this, like the internet is slow, it will take 2 or 3 seconds. Okay? This function will stop executing. It will stop here, literally. And it will just go and do something else. JavaScript will go and do something else. When this promise will resolve, there is a then. The then will be, so it's like JavaScript is doing by default .then, waiting for the promise, and whenever we have the response, we do something with the response. So JavaScript is doing then, and this response, JavaScript will put it in this variable. So you don't need to actually nest and say then response.json. You can just say response await fetch, it will wait for fetch. Await, it will wait. We wait for JSON, we say await response.json. And here there will be some delay, and it will be in the body. And after that, you return the body. So it will, if we will call this function, it will return a promise by default. Even that we are returning like data, it will return a promise. So let's say result alert it's an object, a lot of objects. It's an array of objects. Okay? Even that I'm returning just data here, which is in the array. But this return, it will not happen straight away. JavaScript will wait here. After that, wait here. And whenever it will return, it will fire the then. So instead of chaining promises, I will convert the whole execution sequence into a promise. Instead of nesting. So it's clear, you don't need to nest.
I can see that in the programming world, nobody likes to nest. Because
Yeah,
as soon
like-
as we have something nested, they like try to change it, like
Yeah,
bring it
and
to
also
left.
when you nest, it's like your mind will go one level deeper. Like I need to think about something else. So map inside map, there is the variable inside the first map, the variable inside the second map, and which one you are editing, and like it's confusing for everybody, even the most like experienced people. So nesting is not good, kind of. Yeah. So is it fine that we will keep it like this? But you can see, you can compare this code with this code. Okay. So here, and for people that they are saying I can put this function and put it here, like in the sense call await and stuff. I I can put this function, get Giphy, and put it here, technically.
Yeah. One.
But I don't want to do that because like this function is separated from this component. Maybe I need to fetch Giphies in another place. So just like have it as well.
One cool thing is that I saw an example of making the component did mount. Just put the async
Yeah, you can.
and you can do that. And that's
You can do that. Yeah,
quite cool.
you can just do this, and you say, "Oh, wait here," but I don't like this.
Okay.
Because you should like just split your components. Like you need like fetch data here. You should not change all the component and make it async just because you need data here. Like but it's really.
I do like it. I hope that you have no trouble.
I have trouble in this in the sense because it's like mixing logic. You know what I mean? It's really good to get up and running, but in the long term, components should be really responsible for really small stuff. Your components should be clear. You should not define your components are not your program. Your components are chunk of UI you reuse it. You should not think about your component as it's my program. I run it and it will return a result. You know what I mean? We will do that. Clear? So we can say here console.log and we can say .dem response console log response, and we have the error. Okay. Now actually we want to display. So let's create render. We already have render. Of course, there is no component without render. So here I will say just UL with a bunch of and I will say, so let's maybe store this in this state because we need to access this data somewhere. And the most maybe you want to store it inside the component, but it's better to store it inside the state because whenever this data will change, you will re-render again. So rendering and the state are copied. So this is how you should think about it.
Okay, yeah.
So let's say props super props. Okay, this dot state. Object. Data, let's say no. Okay. And here, when we will get the data, we will not display it. This is super like dummy console.log. We'll use this dot set state and say data equal response. Just so you can see it. Clear? So we are waiting for this. This will take some time. It's a promise. And whenever it gets resolved, we say done, and we get the response. And the response is technically this one. It's the body.data. So we're already saying .data. So we don't need to say data here. And we say this .set state with the new data. Clear? So technically the data will be null. And for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, when the component will get displayed, it will be populated with the API. So here, let's say the UL. So let's say this dot state, and this dot state dot data, and we say map because it's an array. Cannot read property map of null. Even that we can do this. Cannot read property map of null. Why? Because the first time you render, you don't have the data yet. Because component did mount will run after render, and render will run before component did mount, so before fetching the data. So there is a case where data it will be null because we initialize it with null here. And after, when we get the response, it will be populate inside the state.
Okay.
But all this like this time where we are waiting, data is still null. So you need to actually handle the case wherever data is null.
So you put an empty array.
Usually you put either an empty array here, or you can actually test it here. You can say if this dot data, like you do
null.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's up to you. You need to double check that.
You have to use the spinner. You can use the spinner as
I know
Yeah.
the fallback.
Yeah. So we will have the data here, and let's say map. Okay, map over the data. Just do this. So I will create a component called Giphy. Okay, let's see. Okay, it doesn't exist anymore. So I would say new file, giphypig.js. Yeah, this one. So I'll say, as usual, import React super annoying from React and export default. Let's just use a function. Function Giphy pig. Okay, it will take props. We are not using props yet, so we'll just return here an li. And we can say hello here, just as yeah, just slash here. Clear? And here we need to import it, so we'll say import Giphy. Okay, from
Did you say? Did you say?
I think I've saved it. No,
Yeah, I did.
I did. Yeah, it's super strange showing this here, even that I'm saving. It does, but there is something wrong. So here we are displaying this. The data is the API is really fast. So what we can do actually is delay it a little bit. So yeah, so we can go to API here and say const. Yeah, so let's say yeah, so let's just say await delay. And I will create a function called delay. So I will show you now how to actually convert the callback stuff, or the because set timeout is callback based. You give a callback, so we want to convert it to a promise. So we can say function delay. Okay, it will return the promise. Okay, the promise will take a function, as you know all. Resolve and reject. You know this. And here we will say, so let's say this will take time. So I will give here, for example, 2 milliseconds. Here I will say set timeout. I will wait for the time that I passed from there, and I will just call resolve.
Perfect.
So set timeout we call resolve after. So we are converting like a callback based thing to a promise, and whenever it's a promise, we can use it in the async way. Is it clear? This is how actually, if you have like helper function or something that it's all, you can convert it to use it with a weight like this.
Why don't you declare the function inside the get utility? I'm asking.
Like this, put it here.
Yeah.
But this function and this function, like these are two separate functions. You can use this function somewhere else.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should not
Yeah.
couple them, because technically they are not coupled. And you can see here, so yeah, kind of. So we can actually just like do this, declare this function, and check it. So I will say delay 2 milliseconds, then I would say console.log, done. undefined is not a promise. There is something wrong. There is something wrong. Promise you solve. Just a second. No, still. Undefined is not a promise. Yeah, sorry. I did a mistake. It's just when you don't give enough attention. Sorry. Promise is a constructor. So you need to prefix it with new. Okay? So you can see here, if we will say like 4, we will wait. It will be. Okay? So, but I think it's clear, like this delay function about the promise and resolve, like it's only about promises. Of course, I'm not expecting you to be super good at this. This is like just a helper function. It's not something related to React, but you can just check it after, like see how to go. So now we have like kind of this bad like UX. So before, let's actually try to display the pictures, okay? And let's say comment this. Let's display the pictures. So if you will see here that there is like, so we have like data, and we have only data. It's an array, and there is object inside, and in the object there's images.
But they don't come with an ID. That's a bummer.
There is the ID here. This is just one image.
One image.
This is one image. So let's just take this one. It has a lot of stuff. So in the so when we will say here the if you say here like image means this object, okay? So inside this object we can say images. Images, it will give us this object, and inside it we can say
Like
there's
a
love.
preview,
There's
preview.
life. Let's say preview.
Yeah.
Oh, but preview is the yeah, fix it high. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Let's just take the first one, okay? It's this key. I was looking for some. Okay, let's use downsized because I want something that it's a little bit smaller. Okay, downsized. So if you will use like images. So I can use here like image dot images dot downsized. And if I would just try to open this here, so I can. So, I'm just trying to show you. So you can see each one is like image, because downside is still an object. So we need to say URL. So we have like URLs here. It's an image. Okay? So the dummiest thing that we can do now is just go to Giphy image. And in the li, we can return like an image. And say source equal props dot image. What do you think?
Can you put the GIF of the dog? There was a dog.
No art.
I will share this repo after. Not repo, this code. I will share it after. But I hope I didn't lose you until now. Is it clear, Libet?
Yes.
I didn't lose. What? Yeah. What? Delay?
Delay function.
Where?
Ah,
I'm not using it. We'll talk about load. Maybe we will show spinner after something it's turning, and you know. Yes. So, do you have any questions? No. Just like eventually now, if you have like something to say, maybe. But you will have eventually like the time to ask questions. Something. Okay. It's just. You are welcome to.